Anakin Skywalker, the character we all know and love, gave up everything to become Darth Vader. But have you ever pondered the alternate reality where the galaxy's wisest defender, Obi-Wan Kenobi, could become its most fearsome enforcer? Dive in as we uncover the thrilling untold tale. Let's begin around the events of The Phantom Menace. Qui-Gon Jinn has just been killed by Darth Maul, but avenged by his apprentice Obi-Wan. When Obi-Wan watched his master fall, he was overcome by rage and hatred. All his Jedi training went out the window. His emotions led his actions, not his justful judgment. He strikes down Maul in anger as the young Jedi feels the power of the dark side for the first time. It calls to him, almost consuming him on the spot. But as he looks at his fallen master, he's quickly pulled back. Kenobi feels saddened, distraught, as he cries holding his master's body. His first test of the dark side as the intense emotions of death begin to eclipse him. Fear, loss, and hatred broke the young Jedi's defenses as he let this get to him. He should not mourn his master as the Jedi Code says, but he can't help it, and this makes the young Padawan susceptible to the darkness. The events after this play out as they did in the original timeline. Kenobi, after promising to train Anakin, becomes his master as the young Skywalker joins the Jedi Order. Darth Sidious has just killed his master, Darth Plagueis, to become Lord of the Sith and began implementing the final stages of the Grand Plan. The Clone Army, as well as the Confederacy of Independent Systems, has been set in motion, but Palpatine requires one more thing. He plans for Order 66 to be his final move against the Jedi Order, but he needs an inside man, a Jedi that will aid him in the purge, a Jedi that will become Darth Vader. Darth Vader wasn't a person, but a symbol of pain and vengeance, and Palpatine will have to create him. Palpatine had a few ideas of who could become Vader. The most likely candidate was Anakin Skywalker, new to the Jedi Order and easily malleable. They had deemed him the chosen one, destined to bring balance to the Force. How ironic if he became a merchant of darkness. However, another potential candidate revealed themselves recently, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Palpatine hadn't heard of the name until it was reported he killed his apprentice, Darth Maul. A mere Jedi Padawan killed his own apprentice, skillfully trained in the dark side. Maybe the young Jedi could be of use to him. Palpatine is keeping his options open, not putting all his eggs in one basket. For the next 10 years, the Confederacy of Independent Systems continue to develop, and Anakin begins his training under Obi-Wan's tutelage. Palpatine still keeping a close watch. Let's fast forward to the Clone War. Ever since Obi-Wan's dance with the dark side years ago, it's been looking for a way to get him, consume him, but all his Jedi teachings have remained superior. However, he's definitely susceptible to bouts of rage, much like his Padawan Anakin. He's not as level-headed as he previously was, and he's more emotional than a Jedi should be. The Clone War doesn't help with this fact. The darkness is growing, the Jedi Council can feel it, and it's slowly seeping into the Order. Many believe the Jedi to be the cause of the war, that years of inactivity and blind obedience to the Senate has sent the Republic into chaos. Obi-Wan, in his emotional state, starts to believe this. Towards the latter end of the war, Maul makes his reappearance. When Obi-Wan finds out about this, the dark side in him grows stronger. He desires revenge against Maul for killing his master. If he couldn't do it back then, he'll do it now. Kenobi faces Maul and Savage many times, but they always seem to escape. Maul comes up with a brilliant plan and successfully takes control of Mandalore. He allows Satine to send an emergency message to the Jedi Order requesting assistance, and knew Obi-Wan, lover of Satine, would show up. Maul plans to take everything from Kenobi, and he starts doing just that. He captures him and kills Satine, his lover, right in front of him. Obi-Wan watches the light leave her eyes as she collapses lifeless. Maul stands up quickly, unaware of what he's just done. The hate, the anger inside Kenobi is terrifyingly strong. All his Jedi training is for naught. Nothing could suppress these emotions. They broke the barrier of Jedi teachings, and they now controlled him. All he desired was revenge. He uses the Force to grab his saber from Savage and spins towards him, piercing his inner chest and kicks him away. He clashes blades with Maul a few times, but ultimately spins around him, cutting off his mechanical legs and thrusts his blade down his torso, ending the Dathomirian Sith. Before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge the sponsor of this video, Owner Saber. Have you noticed those amazing lightsabers trending all over the internet? It's your turn to get one for yourself. This June, Own a Saber is offering a fantastic deal, a 40% discount on every lightsaber along with free shipping. It's the perfect opportunity to seize. As a special treat, they've generously offered an extra $15 off if you use the discount code FANTASY at checkout. You really don't want to miss out on the sale that ends on the 30th of June, so make sure to get in before then. Back on Coruscant, Palpatine was joyous with what he'd heard. Obi-Wan Kenobi had defeated Maul and Savage. He didn't think it was possible until he saw Kenobi after he returned. He stank of the dark side, and it made sense. In order to defeat Maul and Savage, he tapped into the dark side, which gave him the power to do it. Maybe that's what he also did years ago, thinks Palpatine. Maybe Kenobi has more potential in the dark side than he has as a Jedi. His power as a Jedi right now could only be a shadow of what he could be as a Sith. This would also benefit Palpatine. Obi-Wan has the power to aid him in Order 66, but he isn't strong enough to defeat him. Whereas with Anakin, his power definitely rivals his own, and he poses a threat. It is at this moment that Palpatine decides to switch his plan from corrupting Anakin Skywalker to Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was lucky. Maul had done most of it for him. There was only one thing left to do. He had to eliminate Anakin, his closest friend, and Palpatine began putting the pieces in place, and he sets his plan in motion. Padme receives a distress call from one of her former handmaidens and close friend, Rabe. The message included Rabe telling Padme she discovered a secret separatist mining facility on Marix Minor that could be pivotal in the war, and she thinks they should check it out. Padme has shown this message to the High Command, and they all ignored it. However, Padme has decided to go check it out herself. Anakin is skeptical, but he can't go with her since he's leading a mission soon. Anakin wishes he could ask the Jedi for help, but he can't risk exposing his relationship with Padme. He lets her go on one condition, that if she doesn't contact him for 3 days straight, he'll go and find her. Padme agrees and heads off on her journey. However, what Padme didn't know was that as soon as Rabe finished recording the message, she turns to the hooded hologram figure next to her and asks if she can go now, that she's done everything he wanted. But as she finishes her sentence, the hooded figure raises his hand and chokes the life out of Rabe. 7 days go by, and Anakin hasn't heard anything. He's in a total state of panic. The battle he leaves finishes. He contemplates asking the Jedi, even Obi-Wan, for help, but he cannot risk his relationship with Padme being leaked, and he decides to go on his own. He arrives on Marix Minor to find Padme's ship abandoned, and there are obvious signs of struggle, and he begins to panic. In the distance, on one of the active volcanoes, he sees a dark facility, which must be where Padme is being held, and he makes his way over. The facility is heavily guarded and fortified, so he has to sneak his way inside. He can already sense Padme is inside and begins making his way towards her. She's being held in the detention center, but Anakin sneaks into her room. But as they lock eyes, Padme begins shaking and squirming. Anakin rips off her mask, covering her mouth, and Padme tells him it's a trap and they have to get out of there. Anakin senses the urgency in her voice, and they begin their exit. However, on Coruscant, Palpatine has just been notified of Anakin's arrival, and presses the kill switch, then sits back in his chair. Anakin stops his motion as he senses it. The foundations of the facility have just been blown up. He knows they must get out of there. A normal explosion would be bad enough, however the facility is built on a volcano. They have to get out of there now. They don't have a second to spare. As they're running, Anakin doesn't know what to think. Who could trap him like this? No one knew of his relationship with Padme. He brought his mind back and focuses on the present. They get to their only available exit and see their ship below. However, it's hundreds of meters down, and there's no way they can jump down. Anakin looks behind him to see the explosion heading right towards them. Padme hugs Anakin, thinking it's all over, but he throws Padme off the cliff and begins controlling her descent down towards their ship with the Force. He lowers her as fast as he can, but the explosion hits him and his body starts to burn up. But he remains committed, dropping down meter by meter towards her ship as his skin boils in place. In one last burst of energy, Anakin lowers his wife to the ground successfully, but Padme screams as the explosion consumes him and the entire facility. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, was dead. Padme rushes back to Coruscant as fast as she can, and on the way, calls Obi-Wan and tells her to meet with her at her apartment immediately. Obi-Wan rushes in to find Padme crying on the couch. He comforts her and asks what's wrong. She tells him everything, from her handmaiden to Anakin giving his life to save her. Obi-Wan simply looks at Padme in shock. Anakin can't be dead. He can't be. Obi-Wan has lost everything. His master, his lover, and now his brother. He has nothing left. Tears start to swell in Obi-Wan's eyes as he simply sits there whilst Padme cries talking about Anakin, mentioning how she loved him and that they were planning on having children soon. Obi-Wan isn't shocked by this, as deep down he knew about the two, which only makes Anakin's death more heartbreaking. Obi-Wan stands up and tells Padme he must report this to the Jedi Council, but as he thinks of the Jedi, his mind switches. The feeling of sadness and despair begins turning into hate and anger. The Jedi. This is the Jedi's fault. If only the Jedi allowed relationships, Anakin would have been able to ask for help in his journey. But no, the Jedi are too old-fashioned and stubborn. The hate towards the Jedi begins to brew in his mind and starts thinking of the past. Satine's death was also the Jedi's fault. If only the Jedi aided Mandalore when they called for assistance, there might have been hope. She didn't have to die. And then his master. The Council knew the Sith were hunting for the Queen of Naboo, so why didn't they send more Jedi? Why only send him and Qui-Gon? Surely not enough for a Sith. And then it all clicks in Obi-Wan's mind. Everything bad that's happened in his life is the Jedi's fault, stealing him from his mother's clutches to the death of everyone he's ever loved. Obi-Wan's journey down the dark path is set in motion. He's taken his first steps. He reports Anakin's death to the Council, who were shocked by this revelation. However, overall they show no compassion towards Anakin's death. They are shocked, but they don't miss nor mourn him. He thinks to himself, his fate will be the same. Eventually, he will die and no one will care. No one will mourn or cry for him. He'll be forgotten. This isn't what he desires. Obi-Wan sits there in anger, hatred towards the Council who don't care about his best friend's death. He senses no empathy in the room, no emotion. This is the Jedi's ideology. No emotion, not to mourn or miss him. However, Obi-Wan now realizes this is a weakness. They conclude that Master Plo Koon will be sent to investigate the Marinx Minor system and Anakin's death. The session ends, and Obi-Wan's the first to leave, and he makes his way towards Palpatine's office to inform him. He tells the Chancellor of Anakin's death. Tears well up in Palpatine's eyes, and they both begin to mourn their lost friend together. Palpatine apologizes to Obi-Wan for what he's about to say, but tells Obi-Wan the whole situation is the Jedi's fault. They've always treated Anakin poorly and never allowed him to be his true self, always keeping the chains around him. If only they'd let him free, he'd still be alive. Obi-Wan nods and tells the Chancellor not to apologize because he agrees.
You know what, Obi-Wan? I've thought this for a long time, but I believe the Jedi to be the main reason the galaxy has turned out the way it has. They're dogmatic and inefficient, not willing to do what needs to be done.
You're right, Chancellor. The Jedi are the problem. They always have been.
I've tried harder and harder to reduce the influence the Jedi have on the galaxy, but I've reached my limit. I think more drastic measures need to be taken. The Jedi are emotionless warriors. They don't care about anything except losing their power. They're the enemy of peace and justice, Obi-Wan. I sense our views align. Will you help me?
Yes, Chancellor. For Anakin, what do you have in mind?
I sense a great darkness in you, Obi-Wan. The same darkness that's inside of me. Learn to know the dark side of the Force, and together we can rid the Republic of the incompetent Jedi and bring peace and order to the galaxy.
Yes, my master.
Obi-Wan gets on his knees and pledges himself to the Order of the Sith.
Henceforth you shall be known as Darth Vader.
Together they begin plotting their plan, and Palpatine tells them of Order 66, the order to use in case the Jedi go rogue, and conclude that using this is necessary. It's late afternoon the next day, and the plan is set. Palpatine executes Order 66, and together, alongside Darth Vader, they march towards the temple with the clones following behind them. The mighty temple once stood a beacon of hope and wisdom, now stood trembling on the precipice of oblivion. Sidious reveled in the coming purge, a symphony of despair and destruction he had meticulously composed. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the bright young Jedi, was gone, replaced by a Sith Lord fueled by betrayal, regret, and a thirst for vengeance. Together they purged the temple, the darkest day in Jedi history. No Jedi stood a chance for the combined might of Vader and Sidious. The Masters were spread out in the temple, so hunting them down one by one was efficient. The clones served their purpose, cutting down many Jedi and assisting the Sith Lords in killing the Masters. Mace Windu and Yoda didn't stand a chance against the onslaught of blaster fire, accompanied by the two Sith utilizing all their power to destroy them. The temple was purged, and the Jedi were no more. Sidious congratulates Vader and sends him off to Mustafar to end the Separatist leaders, whilst he makes his way to the Senate to make his grand speech. Kenobi, or Vader, successfully murders the Separatist leaders and the war is over. But as Obi-Wan enters his ship to return to Coruscant, he notices a message from Plo Koon. The message explains how Plo found a bounty hunter lurking in a bar near the explosion on Marix Minor and managed to get key information out of him regarding the recent incident. He used a Jedi mind trick to get the bounty hunter to reveal that he was hired by a cloaked man called Sidious to capture the Handmaiden and the Senator. Obi-Wan stops what he's doing, and he's realized what's happened. He's been completely set up and manipulated. Palpatine killed Anakin and used this to bring Obi-Wan to his side, and he's done everything he's asked, aided in his takeover and genocide of the Jedi Order. The rage in Obi-Wan reaches its peak. He's never felt this way. He's been played like a fiddle, used for Palpatine's agenda. However, nothing has changed. He still endured a life of pain, and he believes the Jedi to be the cause. But Palpatine is just as bad, and he's now on his hit list, and he has a plan. He contacts Master Plo, who's on his way back, who asks Kenobi what happened. He explains the purge to the Master, and tells him he managed to escape, but together they must confront Sidious to end his empire before he can establish control. They meet in the space outside Coruscant, flying side by side. Plo can sense the darkness around Obi-Wan, who's trying to conceal it, and comes to the conclusion that it's the result of the horrors he's experienced during the purge. Together they make their way down to Coruscant and land outside Palpatine's office. He's just made his speech and begun his new empire, but Obi-Wan has other ideas. He plans to manipulate Plo and use him to take down the Emperor, the only Jedi to have defeated Yoda in a duel. He's the perfect choice. Together they enter the Emperor's office, and he smiles towards them. He suspected Vader would betray him eventually, but he didn't expect it so soon. In a blur of movement, Palpatine lunged towards them, his lightsaber humming a dreadful tune. Obi-Wan parried the attack, clashing his blade against Palpatine's with a hissing crackle. Plo quickly moved in, his green blade a whirlwind of light, seeking an opening, but Palpatine was fast, spinning with unnatural agility, deflecting each of their strikes. He sees an opening, and goes to strike at Plo Koon's shoulder, but was baited in. Before Sidious could connect, Obi-Wan took off his arm, spun around to cut into his hip a few centimeters deep, and Plo Koon sent him flying back with a burst of force energy. Sidious hits the wall at pace and gets up to one knee. He spits out blood and curses at the two.
Master Plo, you are a fool. Do you know who you're fighting with? Kenobi is the one who purged your Jedi friends. The death of those Jedi are on his hands. So what exactly are you fighting for here? If you help me, maybe we can stop him together and save the Jedi Order.
Plo's glance wavers as he tries to make sense of what he's hearing. But as he turns towards Obi-Wan, his vision is overcome by an electric sapphire blue, which is the last thing he will ever see. Obi-Wan did what he had to. He couldn't have injured Palpatine without Plo's help, but now he no longer needs him and is disposed of. Palpatine is now weaker than Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan uses the Force to dismantle his blade and cradles the blue Jedi Kyber crystal in his palm. He pours his inner turmoil into it, the crystal pulsating as it absorbs his unchecked aggression and anguish. As the Force swirls around him, steeped into the darkness of his deeds, the crystal begins to bleed, the bright blue hue morphed, deepening into an ominous crimson red that mirrored the depths of Obi-Wan's fall from grace. He ignites his newly constructed saber and rushes towards the heavily weakened Sidious and finishes him off with ease. With the Jedi massacred and Sidious' death, Darth Vader takes over the mantle as Emperor of the Galaxy. Sidious's close associates, including Mas Amida and Saint Pestage, all swear loyalty to Vader, and he controls the galaxy. Kenobi believes the Jedi and Sith are at fault for all the problems in the Republic. It's always been corrupt, and democracy has never truly been a thing. The only option left is to take control for himself and force his own visions on the galaxy. His empire would be different from Sidious. Sidious rules with an iron fist, He would utilize fear and intimidation as primary tools for maintaining power. However, Obi-Wan wouldn't be so cruel. Although his empire was harsh and stern, it created order in the galaxy, and every system prospered. Famine reduced, equity was reached, and opportunity for all was at an equal. This is ultimately the vision Vader always had for the galaxy, and he's used the dark side to achieve it. However, once Vader has control and everything is at his disposal, he feels something is missing. He's lonely. He's always had either his master, his lover, or best friend by his side, but now he has no one. He travels to the Jedi Temple to search the archives. He looks up his history and sees he was taken from the planet Stujon. He travels there in search for his brother, whom he can only just remember. He moves from village to village and finally finds his hometown and the Kenobi family. His mother, Carol, and his younger brother, Obi-Wan Kenobi, 35 years old. He embraces his family members and they have a long catch-up. When Obi-Wan looks at Thorlin, he senses the Force in him. However subtle, it's still there. Obi-Wan chuckles to himself. Both brothers were Force sensitive, but the Jedi deemed Thorlin to be too weak to share the secrets of the Force with. This only reinforced his view of the Jedi. He invites his brother to join him by his side, to help rule the galaxy and learn the ways of the Force from him. Thorlin accepts and becomes Vader's apprentice. Together they rule the galaxy and pull it into an optimistic and prosperous future. If you enjoyed this video, you have to watch What If Anakin Never Turned to the Dark Side or What If Thrawn Joined the Republic. Consider becoming a channel member for $1 a month, where you get sneak peeks at new video ideas and thumbnails before everyone else. I'll see you guys this weekend.